got a cold spot deep inside of me. It's a hidden desire that the world can't see. It's a quiet longing, something trying to get free. I don't know if I should let it go, if I should set it free. I've got this cold spot deep inside of me. I want somebody to make it hard. I don't know if I'm ready for love. I want somebody to make it hard. I've got this cold spot, yeah. I need somebody to make it hot, y'all.
Folks, rolling along here on the Jake Feinberg Show. Welcome back inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And as the spirits call, they do so in a rhythmic fashion. As I get a chance to go back deep into the lineage of rhythm, which comes from the human heart, and obviously you can increase consciousness, social consciousness, and enlightenment through rhythm. And my next guest is an incredible drummer who's found himself arranging, producing, composing, and playing on some of the heaviest soul, jazz, R&B, funk tunes that have ever been about in this country, in the world. He had his start down in New Orleans and Louisiana in that range, and we got a lot to talk about. Herschel Dwellingham, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake. It's good to be on your show.
It's nice to hear you, man. I wanted you to just talk a little bit about, I've interviewed Ralph Penland, rest in peace, and Harvey Mason. And both those cats, they had, Penland couldn't get in to take lessons with Alan Dawson. He was too busy. But Mace talked about the fact that Dawson was like, man, there's not much I can teach you, so let's just play some games. And so they do a call and response and with vibes and drums and they'd play. So it was not what you know to be today as academia, where there's okay. So ultimately, Alan hooked up. I think it was the Duke Ellington Orchestra was coming through Boston and got Mace a gig. But I just want to know experientially the kind of games that you and Dawson were cooking the groove on with Dwellingham, because I mean this is a mind blower to me, man. I did not know that this man Dwellingham from Louisiana made his way all the way to Berkeley. Those cats were coming over on boats and stuff, Alan Broadbent and all those guys, and there you are coming up. So can you talk about the games that you and Dawson used to play?
Well, what we used to do was, it's funny you said that. We used to go down in the basement of the old Berkeley school rehearsal room, and I would put my drum set up, and he would have someone to put a drum set up. And it was like I would show him some funk stuff, and he would show me the jazz stuff. And we'd sit there and play, and play against each other, and play with each other, and swap things, and he do four, I do four, and everything. And also, I used to do the same thing with a percussionist who taught there, Fred Buddha. I wanted to learn I wanted to study vibes with him. So we did a bargain. He would teach me vibes, and I would teach him funk. And I used to get my kicks when the Boston Symphony, Boston Pop played during the summer. I look on TV, and he'd be playing my licks. And it would be so funny to see him doing it. It was amazing.
How do you spell that cat, the percussionist's last name? Frank what?
Fred.
Fred what?
Fred Buddha. Buda.
Fred.
I think.
And so Buddha wound up in the Boston Pops, and you'd be seeing him comping your licks.
Yeah, he would. He was in the Boston Pop at the time I was studying with him.
This is interesting. Now, okay, so Herschel, I want to just back up a little bit because I mean you were in that inaugural Berkeley group, and I mean I got to be, and you know better than me, but the word funk was not in the musical lexicon at that time. It was let's play a funky blues. Let's play something funky. Funk was not.
Well, the person who made the word funky and used it the first time was Earl Palmer.
Okay, no, hold on. I just want to be. This is so important because, maybe not funky, not a funky groove. Because I mean, listen, I interviewed Hal Blaine, and Earl Palmer was his mentor, right? And Blaine said that when he first hit the scene, because Earl got him in the studios, it would be like play a rock feel, right? Play not a rock beat, just play something like a rock feel. So you could say it was a funky feel. But the word funk, like to play funk music, you weren't using that term in the early 60s. That term didn't come along till maybe Sly Stone at the end of the 60s. But you...
Well, no, I would say in Louisiana, when I was a kid, they were using the word funk. And that was like late 50s and 60s.
They would say it's a funk, this is a funk gig.
You would talk about something let's play something funky. That was even back during the Fats Domino days and the Little Richard days with Earl Palmer. Earl Palmer, he's the one that said, let's do something funky. He started that whole thing.
But it wasn't like, so let's play something funky, but it wasn't like, I'm just being clear, like, to attack.
Oh, no, it wasn't like, I understand what you're asking.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the funk I played.
It wasn't funk.
It
was like it wasn't like, let's go play.
It was more like the rock funk.
Rock funk,
like,
okay,
boom,
rock funk.
Boom,
boom.
Boom.
So, I mean, what was he doing? What was Palmer doing with the bass drum to create that funky rock sound?
Well, basically, all us drummers from New Orleans got that second hand thing going.
Second line.
Even though I never played in a second hand line band.
I dig.
And Earl told me he never played in a second line band. But we all had that in us. That kind of marching, boom, pop, boom, pop, boom, boom, boom. We all had that. That was just part of our culture. Now, maybe it came from Africa into New Orleans, probably did, in Congo Square. But that thing had always been around Louisiana from way back.
Can you talk a little bit about basically the idea of how the band? What is your understanding of? Was the first trap set created in Congo Square?
I wouldn't know. I really wouldn't know because I really didn't keep up with that history.
Right.
But I'm quite sure the first trap set probably had to be around probably the 30s.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Because I
say
think Swingerland.
Yeah.
And those people started making drums in the 30s. I think maybe the 20s.
You have any idea which cat played a trap set? Was it Sid Catlett? You know, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to get.
Sid Cadillac played. What's the other guy that had his own band that Ella Fitzgerald used to sing with? Who had the hump in his back.
I don't know. You're talking to a 39-year-old cat. I'm not sure who that was. But,
oh man, he had a big band. It was a famous band, and Ella Fitzgerald was the singer, and he was a drummer. Gosh.
Was it Louis Bellson or was it?
No, a black dude.
Black dude.
In Harlem.
Papa Joe Jones. Papa Joe.
No, way before Papa. Maybe Papa Joe was around, but this guy. Oh man, I can't think of his
Okay,
name
you know
now.
what it is. This is the most amazing situation to be able to talk to Herschel Dwellingham here. I mean, just marinating in the funk and the groove. But I mean, you know, did you? When did you? Were you playing with cats like Paul Boudreau and who were you playing with down in New Orleans before you headed off to Berkeley?
I was playing in a band that originated in Bogalusa called the Rhythm Aces.
The Rhythm Aces.
The Rhythm Aces. And they were very popular all across the South, Texas, all the way across Florida and up. Some of the people that were in that band, Earl Palmer was in that band at one time when he got put out the Union. The trumpet player, the black trumpet player in L.A. that was the top lead player. Oh,
was it Bobby Bryant, Curtis Amy?
Bobby Bryant was in that band.
Bobby Bryant was in that band?
He was from Mississippi.
Man.
Bobby Bryant, Earl Palmer, another guy named Puddinhead Jones. There were some great guys that had been in that band. And what happened, Earl and the union president had Lee Allen, Earl Palmer, and a couple other guys was protesting that the union president in New Orleans was stealing money, and he ejected them out of the group, out of the union. So he couldn't work there, so he came to Bogalusa and started working with the Rhythm Aces. And when he was working with the Rhythm Aces, this is how I got into drumming. I was about 4 years old, and I went to a prom with my mother, who was a teacher, and my father, who was a science teacher. And Earl was playing with them, and I just stood up and looked at Earl play all night long. I mean, it amazed me. And I looked now. My mother told me as a kid, when I was a baby, to keep me from crying and aggravating her while she cooked dinner at night, she used to pull out a pot and give me 2 wooden spoons.
Wow.
To beat on. So she said I started really beating on things as a baby just to keep myself busy while she could cook. So I guess I've been playing drums ever since I was a baby. I'm going to write. I'm doing a book. The name of the book is going to be called Pots and Pans, and it's going to be about my story and things. And but that's how. And Earl gave me my first pair of drumsticks.
How did
and
you?
To this day.
Yeah, go ahead.
To this day, I keep the spirit going. I keep about 4 or 5 pair of new drumsticks in my stick bag. So when a kid comes up and starts looking at me play, seems like he's interested, I give him a set of sticks in Earl's name.
What did Earl Palmer, I mean, for those of us who weren't around and maybe not quite understanding of all the lineage, I mean, I interviewed Alan Toussaint before he passed away, and he called Earl Palmer king, and basically the guy, Hal Blaine, and I've seen that guy play brushes with the Limelighters in a folk setting. I mean, that dude had some serious time feel. And, I kind of wanted you to talk about his style and how he used the symbols as well for colors. When I interviewed the late great Joe Sample a couple times, and he talked about the fact that drummers could be in their 50s today and they don't use, in a jazz setting, they don't use the symbols. They don't know what the symbols are used for. It's not about bashing them; it's about colors. And I wanted you to talk about the way Palmer used the symbols and how it influenced you and the way you use the symbols.
Well, like people, I don't have like loud symbols. On all the records I play, pretty much when I do a record date, I don't use metal. I don't use plastic tips. I use wooden tips. And I let the symbols be there, but not there. And engineers hate that to the whole record.
Right.
So I always play very lightly on the cymbals, as though you're playing tunable bells. So Earl plays the same way. He's not a loud drummer, but he plays very lightly and kind of taps the cymbals. He has a lot of taste about his playing, and especially with the cymbals. Well, you get an Elvin Jones or Tony Williams, that's a different story. The cymbal is a bashing instrument. Now, the thing about me is it depends on what setting I'm in. Now, if I'm doing a jazz gig, I go Elvin Jones. Or either I go, my other favorite drummer is Grady Tate. I go Elvin Jones or Grady Tate, and I do some bashing. But if I'm doing like a R&B record or something cool, then I go back toward Earl Palmer and O.C. Johnson, them guys who were very light and cool with the segments.
You mentioned Elvin Jones. When was the first time you got to see him live, and what was he doing? Did you get to see him with Coltrane? Did you catch any of those cats?
I'll tell you the story. It's crazy. I went with, matter of fact, one of the members of the Rhythm Aces, and I went to see him at a place called Madonna's in New Orleans. So when I get there, I sit down, I see that he only has a bass drum, a snare drum, a crash and a ride cymbal, and a hi-hat. Not a complete drum set. So I said, what are you going to do with just that little stuff, Man, I had no idea what I was going to be treated to. He played that stuff, made it sound like it was a whole full set.
We're talking about Elvin right now? We're talking about Elvin Jones right now?
Elvin, yeah, Elvin played. You thought he had a full tom-toms, everything.
How did he do it?
Well, he used the bass drum as a tom. And between the licks of the bass drum and the tom, I mean, it takes a technique. And I did it. I came home, put my toms away, and went to work on developing that. And I play a lot of gigs like that. People say, it sounds like you got a whole drum set. Because you're using the snare and the drum and the bass drum, it's the same thing.
How can you talk to younger cats who have these huge kits, and it's and this propensity to be very busy on the trap set. I mean, busy is one thing, but can you talk about truthfully? Inside your soul and your heart, how you generate sonic expansion with a modified trap set like the one you were talking about. How do you generate? Most people say, "Oh, that's too little. They're not going to be able."
Well, you're playing the snare and the bass drum, and what you play on the tom. If you got the right kind of technique, like you said, I'm an Alan Dawson student. He teaches you how to do a full drum roll on the bass drum. So your feet are like your hands. So you can do a lot. That's what Elvin was doing. He was treating the bass drum like it was. He wasn't using it for time. He was using it as a part of the kit.
I dig.
As like he would use a tom. I mean, I couldn't believe that. That I told you, I played drums for about 4 years with just them two things, just to get it together. And I had a gig with my band. I had a group called Herschel Bar Band in New York and Greenwich Village at the garage. And I only used a snare and a bass drum for 4 years in that gig.
What year was that?
And people couldn't believe.
What year?
We're talking about 2000, before 9/11.
Okay, so but it was called the Hershey Bar Band in the garage.
It was called the Hershey Bar Band. I had Huey Cox, myself, and another great bass player, Keith Lambert. It was 4 pieces. And, man, you couldn't tell I didn't have a whole drum set. And then the funniest thing about it, when cats wanted to set in, they had been listening to me all night, not paying attention. So when they get ready to set in, they walk up there and see it's nothing but a snare and a bass drum. So they were lost. I used to have so much fun. Oh, you want to sit in? Come on out. I used to have so much fun with that because they were so used to having all these toms and everything, and they thought I had that, and I didn't. I just was using between the stick on the snare and the bass drum. It sounded like I had a whole set.
Well, like, this is really interesting. Did you have a chance to see? Were you going to Lenny's on the Turnpike to see Roy Brooks? Because that dude was playing saws and blowing through.
I have seen Roy Brooks. He was a good drummer, great drummer.
What I'm trying to get at is like Joe Dukes, Pete LaRocca. When you got up to Boston, outside of Alan Dawson. Who were you? Where were you? Were you going to Lenny's on the Turnpike? I mean, was it the Jazz Workshop? Where were you going?
Well, I was going to the Jazz Workshop. I went to Lenny on the Turnpike a couple of times, but I was so busy working I couldn't go nowhere. And then I had the orchestra for 9 years at the Sugar Shack, playing behind all the great stars, the Motown people, everybody. That was like a 13-piece band, 4 trumpets, 2 trombones, 4 sax, and rhythm. So, I mean, I was always busy, If you're always working, you can't go see nobody. I used to have to leave the gig and rush to the Jazz Workshop to see people.
Who would you go? Would you go see Coltrane with Elvin? Who were you going to check out?
Well, I saw Coltrane in New Orleans.
You did?
I've never seen Coltrane, I don't think. Maybe I have in Boston.
When you saw him, you saw him in New Orleans with McCoy, or who were you seeing him with?
This is with the original Coltrane with McCoy and Elvin and the bass player, Jimmy Merritt?
Jimmy Garrison.
Garrison, right.
Yeah, right. Wow. So how did you take, because you're talking about Elvin not playing the bass drum. He wasn't keeping time with the bass drum, was part of the rhythm. It was part of the physical thing, as though he turned the bass drum into his tom. Oh, this is ridiculous. I mean, how did you take that into places like the Sugar Shack when, because listen, I mean Elvin.
Well, yeah, but when I'm in the Sugar Shack playing by the artist, then that's a whole different story. That's not the same. That's a different type of music.
No, what I was trying to say.
I play according to what I'm playing. Sometimes I get a country and western day. I play country and western. If I got a date, a jazz date, I play jazz according to what kind of jazz it is.
You know,
I think because what people don't understand is that about 4 or 5, I started playing the piano. I played organ for my church. I couldn't hit the pedals, but I taught myself how to play keyboard. And I played organ for my church, and my mother played the piano. So every Sunday I would play the organ, she played the piano. I did that until I left Bogalusa. So, I mean, I just had I had all scopes of music in my head. And being that, I think that's what made me a great studio player, is because you could say, Herschel, this is this. I do it. People don't know. I played a lot of records that people don't even know I played. I played some for Paul Lecker. I played Cats in the Cradle.
Harry Chapin? Was it Harry Chapin?
Yes, I'm the drummer on Cats in the Cradle.
Get out of here, dude. This is on. Okay, I
get the checks all the time.
Hold on though. What I'm getting at is like, you know, this. Could you talk about, you know, the gig that one thing that was fascinating to me. I interviewed Julian Priester a couple times, and he had a chance to play with Sun Ra in the 50s. And what he was talking about with Sun Ra was that everybody in Sun Ra's band needed to have their own internal time feel so that they weren't relying on the bass and the drummer to keep time. And you know, you had an opportunity. I'm just wondering if you could talk. So I mean, you get to Berkeley. Were there even back with the Rhythm Aces? When did Herschel Dwellingham start to break up time, break up form, and begin to become a melodic dancer? You know, play the song and not have to be just a timekeeper.
I think after I went to Boston and went to Berkeley, after when I got with Alan Dawson, and I got to be around more jazz at Berkeley, that's when I found a different person. Matter of fact, my style is the combination of New Orleans and Alan Dawson's Boston feel.
What's the Boston feel? I know the New Orleans feel.
Well, I mean, when I say that, I mean, from what Alan taught me, syncopated wise with the bass drum and the hands, his style, what Alan taught me, that changed. It turned it into more like a bop. Instead of like a rock drummer, I became like a bop. Like, you know, boom, bop, boom, boom, bop, boom, boom, bop, boom, bop, boom, boom, bop, boom, 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 bop. I started doing other things besides keeping time. And that's what made the weather report so great, is that I'm being myself. Well, on Boogie Woogie Waltz, of course I'm keeping time. But on those other things, I'm being myself.
You know, so, I mean, what class, were you with Ernie Watts and John Abercrombie and those cats?
Abercrombie was the guitarist in my band.
Can you talk about John Abercrombie? Do you know that he passed away yesterday?
No.
But the spirits align, because I interviewed John. I've done my show for 6 years. I've done 1,000+ interviews like I'm doing with you. John and I cooked.
You know,
tell
the fourth person in my life in a month's time that died. Oh, no.
Well, I want you to...
What was wrong with John?
John, he died of heart failure.
Oh, God.
And I think...
And you know what?
Yeah.
I talked to John about doing this album with me. And he said, Herschel, you know, I ain't played. Like I said, well, it's not something you can't play. You played it before. Me and John was in a band called Danny Wright Orchestra. That's how we first got together.
The Danny Wright
Then when I put the band together, Danny Wright was my Barry player, and John was the guitarist.
Okay, let's just go. This is so important, because this story is going to be all over Facebook later, because this is the spirits connected us, Herschel. I had a feeling because Abercrombie, he was telling me this. I want to read you this quote, and then you can riff on this this band, and then your thoughts on John. He said, Berkeley was the equivalent of a brownstone building converted into a music school. The ground floor had whatever administration it had. They had secretaries, someone to answer the phones. They had directors' offices and classrooms. Upstairs, they had classrooms for private lessons, and in the basement, they had the ensemble rooms that you'd go for jazz workshop or small groups, and big bands rehearsed in there. And he had this teacher, Jack Peterson, who was a guitar teacher there.
Jack was wonderful.
And John Laporta was his teacher there, too.
Wonderful.
Okay, but I want you to talk about when you first saw it. Tell me about Abercrombie and what his legacy is to American melodic improvisation and American music.
Well, John Abercrombie, it was two guitarists there that were really great. Mick Gribbett and John Abercrombie.
Wow.
John Abercrombie was a guitar. He did a lot of my sessions in Boston because I worked at a studio arranging and doing stuff and doing what they call cover the hits. And I used John all the time. I used John Abercrombie and John Tropez.
Oh, I interviewed Tropez twice, dude. This is you use Tropez and Abercrombie.
Tropez is my best friend. When I moved to New York, when I said I was going to move, after the weather report out, I got so busy I had to move. Tropez said, "Come, don't worry." I got there 3 days, got my family settled, and Tropez called me and said, "I got a session for you." And I never stopped working.
What was that session?
That's what Tropez did for Herschel.
Tropez for Herschel. What was the session?
It was a session of Italian music, and the bass player was what's his name?
Was it Bob Cranshaw?
No, older guy.
Wilbur Ware?
No. I mean, the really guy that had all the dates. Upright dates.
This was like the was it Bob Bushnell?
No, you take it back, electric. I'm talking about upright bass.
He was an upright player. It wasn't like Ron Carter or anything like. It was before that.
No, the older guy.
Older upright.
In the area of Milt Hinton and
Slam Stewart kind of thing. Yeah, Milt Hinton. Who else was it? Ray Brown was not on that coast.
Played on great thousands of records.
George Duvivier?
George Duvivier.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I mean, of all the sessions, the first person I played with in New York is George Duvivier.
Okay, but I want to go back to Berkeley. Abercrombie, what made him a great player for? What was the name of the band, by the way, that you were in with him originally? I forget the name. You said
originally it was the Danny Wright Orchestra.
Okay, so how many pieces was in that band?
It was like 4 horns and 4 rhythms. Mark Levine.
I've interviewed Mark. Mark Levine was on bone or piano?
Bone.
Was Gene Perla? Was Gene Perla in that? Was Gene Perla in that band?
Who?
Gene Perla.
No, but Gene Perla is a friend of mine.
Oh, yeah, the man, dude. And then
the bass player was Al Reed.
Al Reed.
And the piano player was Carl Swarton. He used to be with Della. Well,
Sarah Vaughan. Carl Schroeder.
Schroeder, yeah. Carl Schroeder was the pianist.
Oh, I dig, man. What a burning. And then Abercrombie, was he playing like the big L7 Gibson hollow body, or was he?
Yeah, and he was playing that same guitar, and man, he could play. We played some rock, we played some R&B, we played jazz, we played everything. That band was amazing.
So,
and then after a while, when I started my band, Danny became the Barry player in the band. If you see pictures of my band on Facebook or somewhere. The barrel player is Danny Wright. And if you look over to the left, you can see Abercrombie next to the drum set.
What was it? The Dwellingham Burning Funk Band? What was the name of the group?
It just was the Herschel Dwellingham Orchestra.
And you guys would play gigs in New England?
It started as a rehearsal band.
Oh, and downstairs?
It started as a rehearsal band.
Wow.
And what happened, some guys called the Seven Rings, a male organization in Boston, came to me and said, man, we need a band to play behind Roy Hamilton and Laverne Baker. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, well, I got a band, but I got no music stands, no nothing, no lights. I said, it's just a rehearsal band. He came back to me 2 days later with a pile of money and said, go buy the lights, the stands, everything. It's on us. We want this band.
Wow.
And I went and bought lights. I had a few dollars left, and I bought iridescent ties, green iridescent ties for everybody and told them to wear black suits. Charlie Owen's been in that band. Ernie Watts been in that band.
Jimmy Owens or Charlie Owens?
Charlie Owen.
Oh my God! I've interviewed Charlie. I've interviewed Ernie. I've interviewed every Dick Burke. I've interviewed every cat. From now, I get a chance to interview Herschel Dwellingham. Hey, listen. Let's take a listen to this track of music, and then we'll come back and break it down. Okay?
Okay.
Give you all the love I've got, and show you life you've heard talked about. 'Cause I know you're sweet, young as can be, and life hasn't shown you all of its mysteries.
Yeah.
Love for you could be a brand new thing, but I want to offer my hand and make it without pain. For as you live, you're gonna live here in my heart, and our love affair will never part. So I'm gonna stop and give you all the love I've got, young girl. I'm gonna stop and give you all the love I've got, young girl. I'm gonna stop and give you all the love I've got, young girl. One more thing, you've got the world at your feet, eating out of your hand. But don't let your heart fool you and choose the wrong man. Or tomorrow you could be dangling on a string. In a daze and what do you know, you'll be playing his old game. So I'm gonna stop and give you all the love I've got, young girl. I'm gonna stop and give you all the love I've got, young girl. I'm gonna stop and give you all the love I've got, young girl. Oh yeah, come on baby.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show, brought to you by the Jewish Community Center of Southern Arizona, the Jewish Federation of Southern Arizona, Abbott Taylor Jewelers, and Norm Harris's vintage electric guitars. And we thank them so much for their support so we can play tunes like that for Herschel Dwellingham, Young Girl. Now, Herschel, can you explain? Now, your credit on that is as a composer.
Yes.
Now, I want you to take us through. Now, you didn't. It says It's just a bunch of mercurial cats, but this guy Addis Gerald Clopton played drums. But what did you do in terms of composing that made it a hit record? And can you explain ultimately how that tune made it onto the radio? Was it regional radio? How did it?
In 1969, I did the original. I wrote, arranged, and produced the original by Frank Lynch.
The original.
That's a cover of the Frank Lynch to the T. My arrangement, everything.
Now explain how you arranged that too, because it's so ahead of its time.
Well, it was ahead of its time in '69.
It was so there was 60. Well, no, wait, hold on. You arranged.
I mean, you really did some research on me, didn't you?
Well, Herbert, I got to be honest with you, man. Not really. I woke up. I've been seeing you for months. It's and I'm saying I've interviewed Alfred Roberts. I've interviewed some of the Mardi Gras Indians. I have gone and I'm like, you know what? I didn't even realize you were in New Orleans. But all you got to do is type you into Google, and it's like, you find these treasures. And I got to tell you, man, it's humbling for me because I am not. My bag is more, Donald Byrd in the deep electric jazz sort of realm, post bop stuff. But then I'm looking at the names of the cats that you're cooking the groove with, and I don't even know half these. I don't know any of these names, man. So it's humbling because there's so much out there, and I'm always learning. But at the core, I've spent so much. I want you to talk about also did you get off on the Jim Chapin book, the 4-way coordination book?
Let me tell you a story.
Yeah, go ahead.
That has to do with the Jim Chapin. Okay. First, I didn't know that Harry Chapin was Jim Chapin's son till later.
Right, and you played on Cats. You played on Cats in the Cradle. Is that what you said?
Yes. Let me tell you what happened.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is not on the album because Harry and Paul Lecker had a big argument about Paul didn't want to use his father for that session. And he had heard, I had been there to the studio playing other sessions with other people like the Five Satins and some other stuff during the 70s at his studio in Connecticut. And then he started asking me to come, I won't say the groups, and fix stuff. Like come and fix the drum parts and do stuff. And I did a lot of that for Paul. And I did some sessions for Paul. And I did a lot of stuff. Some of these groups, they supposed to did their own stuff. A lot of it is me and Will Lee. And,
wow.
John Tropez. John Tropez was a contractor.
Tropez was a contractor, dude?
Yeah, he was a contractor for the Cats in the Cradle album.
Oh my!
He
this
called me
is
that
dude. Tropez,
Herschel.
I cannot wait to call Tropez. Tropez is on. I cannot believe you, Dwellingham and Tropez were cooking the group. He was always looking out for you. So he was the contractor. He said, "I got this cat."
John Tropez is a brother to me. A brother. There's two guitarists that are really close to me. Bob Boogie Bowes, who is Bob Bowes with Smokey Robinson. He and I started in Boston together in an R&B band with Richard Reed, the bass player, the jazz bass player.
Rufus Reed. Richard, I don't know.
He played with the sax player that used to be with George and them in the group. Red Holloway.
Red Hollow. Wait, like the organ trio stuff with.
Yeah, well, he played with. After that, he played with Red band up to the time Red died. But he was an electric bass player. Matter of fact, he was the bass player on the original, because he lived in Boston and on the original Young Girl. So it's.
Are you still getting? Do you get composer credits for the original and the remake?
Yes, and the money.
Yeah, so was
I'm going to be honest. That guy, Eli, he called me and told me. He said, Herschel. He called me. He emailed me first. Oh no, Facebook. He sent me a thing on Facebook of them in the studio doing the horn part. That's how he introduced himself to me. I said, who is this here? And I'm hearing it. I said, that's young girl. What is that? So then he left a number. I called him. He said, I got a deal with Capitol Records, and the major thing about that record, they helped me get the deal was Young Girl. He said, I was cleaning up Skippy White's. Me and Skippy White owned a record label called My Records. The first Young Girl was on that label. Me, my wife, and Skippy owned. That was the first Young Girl on a label called My.
How do you
by Frank Lynch.
M-Y or M-I? Or,
M-Y. With the picture of a hand saying my.
Wow.
Like you know how you bring your thumb back? My.
My.
Yes. Okay, that was my brilliant idea. And I had a place for you to sign your name on it, since it was yours. That was my trade. That was my marketing gimmick. Okay. So then Skippy moved out of one of those. He had 8 places. He moved out to have only 2 or 3. And Eli's uncle owned one of the buildings. And he sent Eli to clean it up. Somehow, I don't know, God always worked with me in mysterious ways. Eli looks on the floor, and the original Young Girl is in the dirt on the floor.
Wow.
He takes it home, play it, and falls in love with it. Now, he is a discographist, so he decides he's going to look me up and find out about me. He knows more about me than I know about myself. So he called me and he says, after he got the email, I gave him my number, he called me, and we talked. And I told him the story about the original guy that sung My Young Girl got killed in Boston City Hospital by a cop. It really was suicide by a cop in so many ways, because the story is long. I don't want to go into it. But
yeah, I read this story too. You know what it is? To me, it's like, how did you, in the course of your career, even today on these, the track we led in on, the new track, Cold Spot? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
How did you learn to identify infectious hooks, Herschel? How do you identify that? Because a lot of these a lot of people go in and they're like, yo, we got to make a hit record. Well, you're not going to make a hit record that way. It comes so what are those things that when did your ears grow enough where you could really, really anticipate what was going to be a really serious hook?
Well, I started writing songs in the 9th grade. My son just recently called me the other day. There's a thing called archives.com.
Archives.org, yeah.
Yeah, which is all the Cashbox stuff. And he put in Dwellingham. And the first song I ever had out, I was about 17. I took the stuff to New Orleans to a label called Ron and Rick. And it was a song called Come On and Tell Her by a guy named Benny Freeman. And I didn't know that tune had got a big hit in Cashbox until I went there and saw it for the first time. At the age of 17, I got my first pick hit in Cashbox. I was just a natural-born writing person. And I always, being able to play the piano and listen. I mean, I studied this stuff. Not in a way some people do, but God gave me a natural thing.
I dig. No, this was you were gifted with it. It speaks to also the idea that, I mean, did Dawson help you get gigs?
Dawson, you ain't gonna believe this. Dawson.
Wait, hold on. Did you? But before, wait, hold that story. Did you get it? First of all, I need the other cat up there that nobody knows that he played drums was Jackie Byard. Did you get a chance to hang?
I know that, the keyboard player. Yeah,
dude. Because Levine said the lessons with Byard, and I want you to go. I don't want you to lose the story on Dawson, but he said with Byard would come in and say, okay, let's play Cherokee in all 12 keys, and so Levine would start and he'd get to D or E or F, and he'd fall apart. And Jackie would say, okay, the lesson's over for today. You know what you need to work on, and I'll see you next week. He'd play drums.
Right.
I mean, these guys were like Zen masters. This is beyond the pay. So, I mean, tell me the story about Dawson, because Dawson, these guys were like, listen, we are, in some cases, you look at Jackie Byard, Ray Santisi, these guys, they were the original masters, but they also realized the music was always bigger than themselves and that they wanted to pass it on. So riff on that Dawson story, if you would.
Okay. What happened was, Alan, if he couldn't do a gig, he gave me a couple of gigs in Blimstrom's behind some stars. That guy's name was Tony Bone, something. It was his orchestra, and I played a couple of gigs at Blimstrom's. I played some gigs at the Jazz Workshop and the Jazz Workshop, and then there was another room on the other side. I can't think of it.
It was called Paul's Mall. Paul's Mall.
Paul's Mall, yes, thank you. And I played there for Freddie Taylor. I used to play all the time for Freddie. He would get me and Richard Reed, sometime me, and different people to play behind everybody. Joe Williams and a couple of people that come in, I would play trio behind them. But the gig of all was just Peggy Lee was up in on the Cape.
Right.
Okay, at the Sheraton. She came with Grady Tate playing the opening night. The second night, Alan Dawson played 2 nights. I was there playing with another group called a guy named Jimmy Hammonds in the lounge. And he brought Grady over to hear me. And I could see the two of them sitting there smiling, going nuts. I said, what the hell is Grady Tate doing here looking at me? So then when I get off, Alan says to Grady, Herschel can play the rest of the week with Peggy Lee. I looked at him, I said, huh? He said, yeah, I want you to play in the big room with the orchestra the rest of the week. It didn't dawn on me at that time what he was saying, I said, okay. So I played, Bob Cranshaw was the bass player. So we played it. So I was going to go back to Boston, and a guy named Phil Barbosa was the leader of the band. He said, oh, you're not going nowhere. You're working here the rest of the summer. And I stayed on the I played by Jose Feliciano, all the artists that came in that week, that summer. I stayed there with the band. And the funniest thing, Herb Pomeroy was in the band. My teachers were in the band.
I mean,
that was amazing.
What was it? You're out in South Yarmouth somewhere? and the Cape?
On the Cape Cod.
Yeah, right. What was the name of the place?
The Sheraton
Oh, it was at the Sheraton
Hotel, yeah.
You know, this is really important because I don't. One of my favorite tracks off of Weather Report was Boogie Woogie Waltz, and
we just redid it.
I want to know, though, truthfully, how you connected with Wayne and Zawinul originally.
Okay, this is how it came out. I didn't know who Weather Report was. I didn't know it was Wayne or Zawinul or Joe. So I get this call from their manager, Bob DeVere. I answer the phone. He said, "I'd like to speak to your son." I said, "What is it about?" He said, I want him to come down to Connecticut and record with Weather Report." I said, "Yeah, but he's 4 years old." He said, "Well, who is the one that plays drums?" I said, "Me." So we laughed. He said, "I'm Bob DeVere." I said, "From CBS?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Bob, you don't know who I am?" He said, "No, I just know everybody tell me you're the guy." He told me to go get somebody funky, and nobody named nobody but you. He said, "Down Ayers, all the drummers, all the musicians said Dwellingham." So I said, "Oh, that's good to know." So then I said, "Well, Bob, do you remember me being over at CBS and you wanted to buy a track for me called Love, Peace, and Joy for the guy that does Little Green Apples?"
Booker T.
Who?
Booker T. Jones.
O.C. Smith, yeah.
O.C. Smith,
Well,
yeah.
what happened, I went in there to sell it with my artist, Maurice. And they loved it. And they went up for one song. They wanted my arrangement, my tracks, everything. They just wanted to put O.C. Smith on it. I said, "Well, I come to try to sell my artist. I'm really not interested." And he said, first they started at about $15,000. I told him, "No, that's not enough. I'm not really." So he went back in the back, talked to somebody, come back and said, 20. I said, "No." He said, "Well, they told me to go up to 25. I said, "No, it would be really sticking a knife in my own artist's back after all this hard work." So I took it away from there and took it to RCA and made a deal. Now, the weirdest thing, we talking about this, I'm just going to record it with a new artist of mine, a new version of it. But Bob didn't remember that I was the same guy. He thought I was just a record producer, arranger. He didn't know I was the drummer. And also Richard Reed is on all that. All the stuff I did in Boston, Richard Reed was the bass player. So then what happened was I put my drums together. I was working with a girl named Gwen Michaels 6 nights a week. I got a drummer take my place. Went down to Connecticut. They fixed me up with a hotel, food, and everything. They told me to come on Thursday. Nobody was there. Friday, nobody was there. I had already set my drums up in the studio, got the sounds and everything. There were some people that lived in Bogalusa, so I went and visited them. So by Saturday, Joe and them showed up. So Sunday we started recording. So I walked in, and I'm looking, and I'm looking, I'm saying, "Hey, that's Wayne Shorter. What he doing here?" And I said, so then by that time Joe come from another room. I said, "That's Joe Zawinul." I said, "What they call me for?" I mean, it was really weird.
Well, I want to be clear.
Bob didn't tell me who it was with.
So the recording session was going to go down in Louisiana, or because you said you went to Bogalusa to visit some people?
No. There's some people that lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut. They live there. So I went to visit some people from Bogalusa.
I dig. So keep.
Who lived
Yeah. So
in-
that.
in
So
Bridgeport.
but this was at CBS Recorders in New York.
No, this was done at Paul Lecker's studio. That's how he first heard me.
Okay. So he heard.
The Weather Report album Sweet Nighters was recorded in Bridgeport, Connecticut at Connecticut Sound Studio, owned by Paul Lecker and Billy Rose.
Okay. So and I just want to be clear. The Cat site basically without consulting the core members of the group.
No, Joe just told him to go out and get the funkiest drummer in the world. And now he told me how he found out, how he knew me. He used to have a distributorship in Buffalo, and he heard records I had played on that went to his distributorship.
Which ones?
I don't know what was the name of it, but his name was Bob Gavere.
Wow, this is
And he sold his distributorship to CBS and went to work for CBS.
Wow, this is mind-blowing. So then you show up, Shorter's there, Zawinul's there. Was Miroslav there?
Miroslav. I didn't know Miroslav, but I did know. I knew Andrew White because I had played behind Stevie Wonder about 3 or 4 times, and Andrew was the bass player.
Unbelievable. Wait. Andrew White, that cat was out of Washington, D.C. or something. He was playing, right? He was playing,
Right.
Yeah, he's playing.
So I knew Andrew White from my orchestra playing behind Stevie Wonder in Boston.
At the Sugar Shack.
Yes.
How old was Stevie at that time?
Little kid. Little Stevie Wonder.
So was Gravatt there?
Gravatt was there. Now, this is the thing I found out from Gravatt.
Yeah.
He didn't know another drummer was coming.
Oh, boy.
And they almost had a fist fight. Him and Joe almost had a fist fight.
Him and Zawinul almost threw down?
Almost threw down. He told me this himself. Eric told me that. He said, and he didn't, he wasn't really nice to me at all because he was mad.
Yeah, he's just not a.
And
He's
I
not
had nothing to do with
He's
this
not a
whole
friendly.
thing.
He's not a friendly character. He might be a badass drummer, but he's not. Just in general, I understand that. I guess.
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to put him on this new album with us again. I was going to put Maruga, him, and me on this album I just produced. And I kept getting bad waves from it. I said, stay away from this, Herschel.
Yo, dude.
And I stayed away.
He just stay away. What about Maruga? You still talk to that cat?
Maruga did, after I bought his ticket to come down to Bogalusa to record, he messed up with me too. So I don't speak to him no more.
Okay, so the bottom line is this. Once all the emotions were set aside, I'm noticing here that outside of Boogie Woogie, which Boogie Woogie Waltz, which is just Dwellingham solo traps, you're the only trap player on that. The other songs, you're playing double drums with Gravatt. How did you guys?
No. It's either Marinette or either 125th Street Congress. I'm by myself. There's 3 songs. Are you looking at the album?
I looked it up this morning, and it said track 1, 2, 4, and 6, Dwellingham. Track 2, 4, and 6, Gravatt, which means that there was some kind of double drums. I don't know, but maybe.
Yeah. Okay. One place was he played the intro.
Right.
One thing he played the intro. The both of us played on nonstop.
Nonstop. So I mean, how did you guys stay out of each other's way at that point? What were the roles of the double drummer? Were you playing live together?
Yeah, live together. It was beautiful. Was no problem.
Unbelievable.
I played funk. He played jazz.
Right. But let's see this here. I want to bring this up and actually be able to hear this here. All right, let's check this. This is a double drums configuration with Dwellingham and Gravatt, 1973 on an epic Sweetnighter album, Weather Report. Here we go.
There's two things going at one time.
Are you just playing that? What is your role in that tune?
I'm playing the James Brown stuff.
I dig. So I mean that to me is the syncopated rhythms that were started by Earl Palmer, carried on by cats like Herschel, Dwellingham, and Jabo Starks and Clyde Stubblefield. Did you ever have Did you ever have a chance to cross paths with when James Brown had the double drummers going on?
I never. I always wanted to meet those two drummers, man, because I really always wanted to meet them. and I never got a chance. I don't. Is Stubblefield still living?
No, he left us this year. A lot of people leaving us. Yeah, Clyde left us. Jabo's still around. I mean, Jabo's still doing his thing. He's playing down in Alabama. And
Oh yeah, right.
you know, what was the idea there? Like, did you? I guess the bottom line was that did you have a chance to go on tour to promote that album with Weather Report, or was it just a one-time deal?
He asked me to join the group.
That's all we know.
And he asked me, he said, would you like to join? He said, we want you to join the group. And financially, I would have been losing money because, and Bob DeVere told me the same thing. He says, Herschel, which is true, like that group gives about, at that time, at their most, about $5,000 a concert. I was making that a week.
What now? Were you doing jingles? This is really important because I'm trying to. Were you doing jingles? What besides the? I mean, that was
the first Stephanie Mills records. I'm the drummer on.
Right. I'm looking here. I just want to say your discography here is fascinating. You play with Melvin Van Peebles.
I was his music director.
Because I interviewed Melvin a while back. I didn't know that. That's unbelievable. Because
I was his music director from '73 until I moved here in 2003.
Wow. So you used to work with cats like Howard Johnson.
I did Belly Full with him. I did 2 movies with him. I was the music director for Don't Play Us Cheap, the revival.
Absolutely.
And I changed the music up to date to that time. I did a lot of things with Melvin.
No, I was going to say because
Matter of fact, Melvin got 2 albums on my label.
Well, I was going to say that Warren Smith, the great drummer, played traps on some of that stuff. Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. But you were the musical director, right?
Well, I was after Smith.
After Smith. So you were musical director.
I didn't come to New York to '73 and went to work for him.
Right. And then, how did you wind up connecting with him?
I had done as a music director and arranger for an off-Broadway show with a guy named Charlie. Oh gosh. Well, his name was Charlie. Right. He was a director. It'll come to me. And I had done such a great job with this show. I had done such a great job with that off-Broadway show that he introduced me to Melvin as they were going to put a revival on into Philly of Don't Play Us Cheap. And that's how I met him and got the job. Through Charlie, almost hit me. But through him, I got the job with Melvin, and I ended up staying with Melvin for years. We had a group called Roadkill that we did shows around New York with him, a one-man show. We did a lot of things, records, just so much we did together, me and Melvin. Melvin called me his baby boy, and it's the truth because I was young when I went with him, and he taught me a lot about life, people, and theater.
I was going to say, because was that the first time you were really doing like spoken word with instrumental music? I mean, that stuff is kind of hard to get your ear.
Yeah, that's the first time I had done it. I had been in a drama department at high school. I used to act, so I knew about acting and drama.
You would have lost my. I dig the fact you were a studio shark and you were making good money and there was no reason to go on the road. Were you going to Jim and Andy's a lot to hang out? Can you talk about some of the? I mean, Grady.
Oh, you mean that where we hang out?
Yeah.
During lunch?
Yeah.
That's the first place Tropay took me. When I got down to the
So
first place,
you were hanging with Murata, Spinoza, all these cats. I mean,
I even used Murata on some of my dates when I wanted to conduct.
I want to know what dates. I did a great interview with Murata, but I need to know what dates you use Murata on.
I was hired by the show Raisin to update their music.
Sure.
For a tour, and we wanted to record. We recorded over CBS, and I did it with the whole orchestra. So I had to conduct, and I used Rick for that. I also used Jimmy Young.
Oh wow!
For some stuff. I like to record with the whole orchestra. I hate overdubbing, so that means I got to conduct sometime. So if that's the case, what I do, I use Jimmy Young, Rick Murata. I've used. I did a thing, a cover thing of Serpico music. I used Purdy.
Which was
so all them guys. I use them when this whole thing about drumming was not what I was looking for in life. I went to Berkeley to be a composer, orchestrator, that thing. Not to be a drummer. That just happened to keep falling in my lap. What my concentration was is orchestration, arranging, composing.
Oh, I did. No,
I just got through doing. You know who Ellis Hall is? The blind guy from Tower of Power.
Say his name again.
Ellis Hall.
God, I've interviewed all the Tower of Power cats. I don't recognize that name at all.
He was an organ player with Tower of Power.
Before Chester Thompson or after?
An organ player.
Yeah, well, no, Chester.
Not a drummer.
No. Chester Thompson, the B3 player. I'm talking. Played with Santana. Played with.
Oh, you mean there's another Chester Thompson besides the drummer?
Exactly. There's a Chester Thompson drummer. I'm talking about the B3. Do you have any idea when he? Because he was the first B3 cat. He was actually had a day job at Bank of America and asked me.
I don't know when, but I've seen videos. If you go to the website, you can see Ellis Witt, Tower of Power.
Wow, unbelievable.
He's a blind guy, and he just commissioned me for the 4th of July for the Cincinnati Pop. I orchestrated and arranged "Living in America" for him. I have a budget. I have some symphonies. I got string quartets. I'm heavy. And matter of fact, the Massapequa Orchestra, Harlem Symphony, a symphony in Germany. My first piece I wrote has been performed maybe about 6 times. It's a symphonic suite. And I was fortunate enough that Gunther Schuller, Richard Reed again, my brother, he's like a brother to me, took the score to Gunther Schuller. Gunther Schuller didn't believe a drummer wrote the score. So he wanted to make me back. He asked me, could he perform it at Tanglewood with the New England, is that New England Conservatory? Yeah. New England Conservatory Orchestra. I said yes. Well, by my luck, it's all my mother's prayers. My mother must have been on her knees day and night for me. By my luck, Walter Piston was there and heard the piece. And
the old Motown drummer?
No, Walter Piston, the composer. Oh. The dean of music at Harvard.
Pistol Allen was the Motown drummer. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Walter Piston wrote all the harmony, counterpoint, and orchestration books that are so famous and still being used.
I mean, this is unbelievable. Is Richard Reed still around?
Richard Reed, we speak. Me, Richard, and Boogie and Bogues was on the phone last week together.
You got to connect me with those cats because I need to talk to them immediately. This is unbelievable.
I'll send you Richard Reed's phone number and Boogie.
Yeah, but listen, we have more to get to because this is quite remarkable. We've already been cooking for 80 minutes here live on the radio with Herschel Dwellingham. But can we pick up part 2 in the next couple of weeks? Because we have more to do.
Okay, you just give me a call.
All right, man. Yo, listen, I'll get you a cop. I got your email. Please send me a picture of you back in the Berkeley days or in the early 70s so I can put it up with the...
I will.
With the
now, I wanted to say that...
Go ahead.
Right now, I'm shopping the new album, and it features Eli is singing the original What I Got, I did with Maurice on the album. Eli, Paperboy Reed is a guest. Mary Starr. Did you hear the Mary Starr stuff with the symphony, with the orchestra on my website?
That I'm not sure if I got to yet.
Okay, it's Mary Starr. If you go to where it says stage and film, it says Mary Starr and play some of that. That's like my really great string orchestra stuff and big band writing. It's like that. Well, she's on the album. Marlena, who you played, Cold Spot, Marlena, Lady Blacklace, Eli, and Mary Starr are guests. The Barry player on Mercy Mercy on the album is Lewis, the Barry player from the Dirty Dozen band.
Were you getting off on guys like Stockhausen, like the guys that were incorporating a lot of avant-garde percussion within classical music?
I am a Charles I fan, Edgar Bass fan, what's that other guy that did all that things with the piano, with tax and everything.
What about Harry Partch?
I never heard him.
Oh, man, dude, he created a 43-tone octave out on the West Coast when you were marinating out at the Berkeley School of Music. We'll get into this in part 2.
Harry Partch, I'm going to look up as soon as you get off.
Well, I'm gonna send you his name. You're gonna lose your mind because this dude. I mean, this is talking to him.
Well, you know, I write. I studied the Schellinger system, and even in all my R&B writing, I use the Schellinger system a lot, harmonically. If you listen to even Eli on Young Girl with the Strings Are Extending, that's a Schellinger chromatic thing.
That's right.
So I'm really heavy more into writing. Drum is just something that I came to naturally by God.
No, I did. I mean, listen, you had the natural time feel, like all you. I mean, we have more to get to, Herschel, and it was such a high honor to be able to connect with you, man. I had a ball, and I'll get you a copy of this right away, and I'll be transcribed. Tropea it's gonna bring a smile to his face because he just wrote a post about paying homage to the late great John Abercrombie, who we lost this week, and I know the spirits connected us for a reason, and
yeah. Tropea, like I say, Tropea was a real brother to me when I moved to New York. He said, "Come, don't worry." Sometimes I needed money. He said, "Here, you don't owe me nothing." And then when I took off, he was proud of me. He's always been proud of me and been a brother to me, his whole family.
Well, I'll make sure to put this.
Tropea.
This is going to bring a smile to people's faces. So I much love, man, and we'll be in touch. It's just a cosmic way to connect with you, man. I'm so happy.
Thank you so very much.
You had a ball, right?
And when you talk to Tropea, I haven't talked to him in a good while. When you talk to Tropea, tell him.
No, I'm gonna get. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna call Tropea.
Tell him to give me a call.
No,
give him my number.
I'm gonna actually do this. I'm gonna say, listen, I'm gonna give you his number, and I'll let him know that you're gonna be calling him.
I got one number. I just never catch him.
All right. Well, then I'll let him know. I'll tell him to give you a holler.
All right.
All right, and make sure to get me with Reed and the Smokey Robinson guitar player too.
I'm gonna send you the number right now.
And send me a picture and get me a picture of you from back in the days, all right?
I gotta find. I have to find one with me in front of the band.
Yeah.
That's one of that.
Listen, don't go crazy. Listen, man. Listen, we'll talk soon, man. It was fantastic hang, dude. Thank you for dropping knowledge.
Thank you.
Peace. Later.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good day.
You too, man. Later. Herschel Dwellingham, blowing minds here on the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll be back tomorrow with Daryl Anger. Until then, peace.